they have a container of water. The container has sufficient water for only one of them to survive. What shall they do? We speak about sanctity of human life. Well, sanctity of human life, when it stands against religious considerations, convenience considerations, or other considerations, economic considerations, which is not a simple answer, but still, you may make a clear statement about it. Now, what happens in a fair number of cases in which you have two human lives, or more than one human life, and you have then, they are put in a position, in a situation in which you have to one has to make a decision about what to do when they cannot be simultaneously. You cannot keep the law simultaneously, which means one is clashing with the other. There you have the problem. It is not a contradiction of the first principle. In fact, it stems from it. That here you have two, more than finite directives that clash with each other. Now, how it comes to be in a fair number of cases. One of them is discussed in a very lively way in the Talmud. Two people are crossing the desert. They have a container of water. The container has sufficient water for only one of them to survive. What shall they do? Now, it's a question in which the problem about sanctity of life comes into a questioning. What should be the right answer? Is the answer that they should share the water and die, or that one of them should survive and the other will die? And in that level, in which we are sometimes forced by external circumstances in making choices. Some of these choices are terrible ones for those who make them, but still these choices have to be made. Sometimes you have the means, the possibility of saving one life or only a group of lives, and then you have to make decisions. Who takes precedence? This is not, even in a problem, as I say, one may call it that the sanctity of human life, if not infinite, it is at least a transfinite magnitude. Because of that, it also raises the question, which it has answers, not very simple answers. For example, is the life of two more important than the life of one? And if one has to continue it, should you sacrifice one in order to save two? Now, these are not only abstract. These questions become less than abstract questions. We are faced with them, not just as doctors, but in many extreme situations in real life. And these situations are not only medical situations in which sometimes people have to have the time to think about. And it deals with people are in danger. What are you doing? Then there's again, it's a question, perhaps a secondary, but a question in the same area, in a slightly different way. You have to make a choice. You have a place on a ship only for a limited number of people. You have a place in an airplane that gets from some danger only for a limited number of people. There is only a limited amount of food, water, and so on, and you have to make some kind of, as cruel as it is, of selection. What do you do then? Do you have any kind of measures of measuring importance? Or measuring some kind of a law of precedence? To bring an example, which is not, it is not accepted in the Jewish law, but it is still a part of a system that is thinking about it, because these questions are not particularly Jewish questions, and they have to do only partially with Jewish affairs. They are questions that face any human being, and therefore have to be confronted one way or another. The notion that a ship is sinking, who is saved? Who is put in the safety boat? When you say that women and children are put there first, it is also a terrible statement. Why should women and children be put there first? Why are they better, and why? What are the considerations in calculating value of people? But practically speaking, I have to make some kind of a ruling in real life about what do you do if you have a situation like this. It's a very real situation that happens in so many cases, sometimes in a very tragic way, because there are cases in which people will act spontaneously without giving it any amount of thought, just because of some, let's say, childhood notion, or because an impulse. But when people have time to consider, then they have a way of pondering about it, and giving answers is not very simple. Again, which is something which is, again, a medical ethical question, which is discussed in different ways in the Talmudic literature, that deals with exactly the same problematic that stems from the sanctity of human life, and that is basically, who is more valuable? Should you make any consideration of value? And such considerations are double ones. One of them is my own consideration. I have a chance of saving my own life on the expense of some other life. It happens. Am I permitted to do so? Am I not transgressing the same basic principle? The consensus, if one may say so, is that human life takes precedence over almost every other commandment, including those things that are considered the most holy things within the religious forms. Almost everything has to yield to the consideration of human life, which is, say, keeping the holiness of the Shabbat is a very high principle. In fact, anybody that desecrates the Shabbat is stated from the Ten Commandments and farther that it is a capital crime. Still, when it comes to human life takes precedence, which means when there is any consideration about human life, then it takes precedence, and you push away the Shabbat or the Day of Atonement or the laws of kashrut, or in fact almost any other law is pushed aside. There are exceptions, which are in themselves sometimes within the same realm, and they come to in a kind of trying to find out from that very basic principle stem also different other considerations. And sometimes they create in themselves clashes or problems. But basically, the law says that human life takes precedence. Now, human life takes precedence, and that has practically at least two different, similar but different applications. One is in a case not common now, but common in other places, when one is under duress, because outside forces, outside people, force him to do certain things, threatening him with death. What should one do? And because the sanctity of human life is held so much in such a high level, then the answer would be yield. Not because yielding is a praiseworthy way, but rather yield because that is a clash with almost with sorry for using science fiction language, with the prime directive, which is in this case conserve human life. As stated again, it is not absolute, but it is close enough to that, which means that any under duress I am yielding. Now, duress can also have a very different position, which is a clearly medical one. There is a medical necessity for a person to do certain things that are, in a way, involving breaking the law in one or more positions. Doing it is, therefore, again, derived from that first principle. It is permissible because all other considerations are secondary to that of the sanctity of human life. So we have here something which is at least a framework about if we would come to ask, but later on we'll have to refine it and even deal with a great number of practical questions that stem from it. Because in one way, the question can be asked in the following way: what is the value of human life? And the answer should be almost, not entirely, close to infinity. Now, that has all kinds of results, but still, it gives some parameters about behavior, about expenditure, and about quite a number of other considerations that are all stem from that principle, but are growing in practical forms, each in its own position. So there we have one principle that can be considered as the very basic principle at least of ethics that have to do with life and because of that, with medical ethics in real life. If we go on into as the right Talmudic way would be, which is asking questions and more questions, and raising many different problems that come from conflicts, then we'll find out that even such a simple and seemingly straightforward statement is in itself open to more than one consideration, and that is one of the things that have to be dealt with. Some of them have solutions within the Talmudic literature as it is, and clearly and openly. Some of them are problems to discuss, to deal with, to ponder upon, and that that is the second level of questions that come from this very primary formula.